Hey there, Ari here, and I'm back at it with another dungeon guide. This time I'll be covering Azure Vault. So let's just jump straight into it. This route is a slightly different route. Route will be posted below, but essentially you have to do a bit of a backwards skip, or you have to do kind of like a skip and then go backwards to finish the rest of the percent. But you'll essentially be doing boss, boss, boss. Alright, so just to start off with, we are pulling this entire room. The way you want to do this room pull is, usually speaking, you want to assign DPS to kick these 3 lashers. If one cast gets off, usually it's fine. Especially if you're playing with the priest, you can MD it very easily. But you want to interrupt these 3 and then drag them over to the other side. So I essentially kind of pull everything all at once, and then you'll see these start casting, and then we have each individual kind of assigned to kick each, and that's when we start using AoE CCs. As you can tell, our comp is terrible with, the number of kicks we have. We have 2 range kicks, one is a 45-second, we don't have a healer kick, only 2 melee kicks. But, luckily we do have MDs. Either way though, should be still doable. Luckily, we do have a beam, though. We do have a boomkin beam, so that does help a little bit. We do have set AoE CC rotations for the Crystal Furies frontals. However, for this first pull, because it's a lust and, I have all CDs, everything like that, usually speaking, we don't try to stop too many of these first ones. I personally am responsible for stopping the Furies and using defensives accordingly, and then my DPS are responsible for stopping the Lasher cast. So we're primarily using our AoE CCs to stop the Lasher cast, and then for the Furies, the frontal cones, I stop those, or I let them go off and I tank them with a defensive. So they're just dealing with Spiteful, and then I'm just tanking them as necessary. Can't take too many though, okay? Do not tank too many. 2 stacks is usually pretty safe. You can tank those with defensives. If you go to 3 stacks, you probably have to pop SIs. Yeah. Alright, so another thing to note is the tender, the big tree dude, and the little lashers, they actually do melee quite hard. So keep that in mind. They do hurt. And then aside from that, same thing again. We just have AoE CC's individual kicks. We missed one because I think, if I remember correctly, we had some kind of miscommunication there. I'm not sure. Maybe we were just AFK. Probably AFK, to be honest. And then do not pop Incarn again here, because you will need Incarn on the next pull. The first pull was obviously an Incarn pull with Lust. But this one, no Incarn pull with Lust. Usually speaking, you want to drag all the packs into the big room because, the tree drops puddles, and they will one-shot on a high enough key level on your DPS. Okay, so real quick, the way I usually do this pull is I pull it back into the room. You want to tag one of the far ones. You can get close to these little whelplings without aggroing them, as long as you don't step in the circle. You can be on the very edge of the circle and will not pull them. So I'll usually tag the far pack. That pack is connected with the tree. It is not connected to the whelplings. Nothing will aggro the whelplings unless you step inside of the circle. So then I tag everything. And then just a thing to note, if you do get this circle on you, it is fine. Even if you have DPS inside of your circle, as long as you are out of line of sight of the big lasher, if anybody is inside your circle and you get dispelled, it will not stun them. It's a kind of a weird mechanic. Either way though. So right here, We have everything grouped up. Our DPS were LOSing for those initial casts so that they all come in. Now they're neatly grouped. We use the beam, and then we can continue our AoE CC rotation. And then I should be dragging this back. We had a couple of casts get off. Usually we're, I don't know. I guess we're kind of not on top of our kicks because we have 2 massive spells, which is a bad thing, okay? That is a very bad thing. But to be fair, it's a little rough because our fears are target capped. The only things that aren't target capped are Evoker Nox, Druid Nox, and Druid Disorients. Those are the things that are not target capped. However, as the time of making this video, Fear is not target capped anymore, so that's a bonus. I think this video was from 2 or 3 weeks back. Alright. So for this, I pull everything. Be careful your DPS getting aggro. You pretty much pop Incarn here when it comes back up. Use your defensives as necessary when you're gathering things up, because you won't have too much rage, not too many Iron Fur stacks, so it does hurt a bit. And we do assign 1 melee kick to each. Actually, I'm pretty sure a ranged kick is sufficient, as long as it's not a Boomkin or S-Priest, of which we have both. But the way we rotate it for those 2 is S-Priest kicks first, Boomkin kicks second, and then S-Priest will have his kick back up again for the 3rd. And then for the other 2, it's I kick 1 solo, and then our Evoker DPS kicks 1 solo. Just drag these around the room in a circle so that the puddles don't become a problem for melee DPS. We don't have too much of a problem with that since we have ranged. But once again, these trees do melee very hard. Rotate your defensives accordingly. Okay. So we go straight into the boss. For this boss, on Tyran, the dot does hurt a lot. Even on Fort, it probably hurts a lot. So for this Infused Strike, always pop a defensive and 1 Frenzied Regen. Generally speaking, you don't want to use 2 Frenzied Regens. Otherwise, you might be a little fucked for the circles. Yeah. But shortly after the Infused Strike, he will do the Frontal Cone. So you want to pre-position the boss depending on where the trees spawn. And then it's a little rough. You want to kind of take a look at where the trees are, and you want to usually position the boss to hit the 2 middle trees always, and try to get 2 more trees wherever they might be. Doesn't matter where. Try to choose the closer ones so that you can guarantee you hit everything. Sometimes the middle trees are not always clumped. So that first set, they weren't clumped, and so I had to do kind of a weird angle, and that results in the far tree not getting hit. So that can happen. Right here, as you can see, I'm dragging the boss back because I'm going to hit the middle 2, and I'm going to try to hit 2 more. And sometimes you can hit 4, but doesn't really matter. Or 6, I mean, but doesn't really matter. As long as you get 4, which is the 2 middle and 2 of the outer ones, you should have a very easy time clearing trees. A very easy time. But they had the two outside ones have to be like grouped, I guess. You can't hit one from one group and then another from a different group. That makes it very annoying. So same thing again. Again, just identify where the 2 clumps are, or where the shortest outer clumps are to the middle clump. So the shortest outer clumps right here are right here to the middle one. Shortest distance from the outer clump to the middle clump. Sorry, that was very confusing. But identify that and then position the boss accordingly. So one thing to note is depending on what the boss percent health is, you may or may not want to pop another incarn. If you have to pop the incarn to survive, obviously do so. But if the boss is like 25%, 30%, which it was in this case, generally speaking, do not pop incarn again, especially on a fort week. On a Tyrant week, maybe you probably pop another incarn and it'll be okay. But the reason why is because the next pull you have to have incarn. The next pull is extremely dangerous. Alright. I'm just gonna fast forward a little bit because it's the end of the thing and we're just gonna be running. Just another thing to note, the thing is always on the northeast on your minimap. We always get lost trying to find the next place. Alright, so this pull. We pull the whelps. And then be careful with aggro. Tell your DPS to be careful with aggro here because it's very hard to group them. The way we do this is always I get the first two piercing shards, then it's my other druid for the next two, then it's my evoker next two, then we have fears, but because fear is target capped, I am ready to use a defensive for those two sets. So like I said again, you can take 2 hits absolutely fine if you press a defensive. And that is what I have planned. So again, it's my first two, my druid next to, my evoker next to, so that's 6, and then my priest gets 2 more, or my priests get 1 each, so that's 2 more, that's 8, and then your own rotation should be back up again. And this should apply for any tank. Every tank has 2 stops for the most part. It's just that you might have to single target stop one, and that might be a little annoying. You have to be quick with your clicks. Generally speaking, I get my first 2, and then the second one is always inside the stomp, so I always save Typhoon for the second one. And then once I knock it, I go and pull the elementals in the back. And then again, as you can see, my evoker gets his 2. And then after that, it should be the fears. But again, like I said, fears don't always get them, so just be ready for that. So as you can see, I ate both of them. I had to pop SI. And then I get my 2 again. And then it should be the Boomkin 2 again. Oh no, they overlapped. That's right. I remember. We actually scuffed this pull and they overlapped. They overlapped and I was actually very fucked here. So this can happen. Our evoker went early, and so my Boomkin's roar was not up again. And so because of that, what you can do is you can line. So as you can see here, I'm lining the piercing shards in the hallway. So that is an alternative if you don't have enough stops, or if your teammates are fucking up and you just don't have enough defensives because you have to pop them early. I was wondering why I was staring at the ERT note for the CCs. So let me rewind a little bit. So right here, we actually fucked up. Oh no, it wasn't the evoker that fucked up. It was actually my Boomkin that fucked up. He went early right here. He went early. So he stopped when it was supposed to be my stop, I believe. Actually, no, that shouldn't. Hold on, what the hell happened? Something's not right. Because right here, Right here, this one is my Typhoon. And then I think... Oh yeah, he... Oh, that was weird. He went roar. It's supposed to be my roar first, but then he should have a knock afterwards. Yeah, he did knock. Actually, I guess we didn't really go too out of order then. That was actually okay. That was actually okay. This is a high enough key level to where you won't kill everything after 10 stops or so. Even more. So if you don't have enough stops to kill, or yeah, if you don't have enough stops to kill them, you definitely want to line. So make sure to kind of slowly drag them over to this hallway corridor to line. All right, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. This will always be kind of your lust pull, and you have to lust here, otherwise you won't have it up for the boss, usually speaking. And this pack does fuck really hard. Definitely press a defensive plus incarn. So as you can see here, I had defensive plus incarn, and I still dropped extremely low. Alright. I would recommend, if you can, try to stop the initial round of casts. But that was incarn, barkskin, and I still dropped very, very low. Usually though, I'm saving the disorienting roar and knocks for the sleeps, because we just don't have the kicks for them. And then I'm responsible for the icy binding. Again, focus kick macro, as I've mentioned in all of my other videos. Have a focus target macro and then a focus kick macro. That way you can prio target your kill target, like the one that has more health in this case, because you don't have to kill the keeper as fast as possible. You want to kill everything evenly here. The curator has the most health, so that's your target to focus. Either way, we did blow lust there, and we did pop incarn there. That will make this next pull a little sus. And right here, you want to drop down. Be careful of what I just did, which was I hit a little knob up here while dropping down. There's this little knob at the bottom of this, I don't know, cylinder thing. If you touch it barely, you can get hit. The way to avoid that is to run jump or flap early. Alright, so for this one, as I'm gathering them up, they do melee very, very hard. However, they will stop to cast their Arcane Bash. And if they're casting their Arcane Bash, generally speaking, that means they are not meleeing you. And what happened here was we had a very big hiccup in that one of our DPS started tagging things a little early. And then they had aggro, so I had to double back to pick it up. And I did not pop a defensive, which was my fault. And I got meleeed by everything with very few Iron First stacks. So as you can see there, I instantly died. That was not supposed to happen because I'm not supposed to double back to pick them up. If I double back to pick them up, I get meleeed. And that's what I'm not ready for, because as you can see there, my incarn is not off cooldown yet. I should have popped a defensive going back there. I didn't. That was definitely a fuck up on my part as well. But let me fast forward. We do recover the pull, because I do pop incarn to pick everything up again. But this, however, does delay our next pull a little bit, because I'm supposed to pick up everything going into the next one. I can't really do that because I had to pop incarn early to pick everything up, so I can't really pick up that next construct necessarily yet. But once you get everything kind of rolling, you will have more Iron First stacks, and then the melees don't hurt as much. But again, the key thing is, once you have everything gathered, Because once you have everything gathered, you're hitting what, 10, 11 targets, something like that. With 11 targets, you'll have enough iron first axe to where if you don't get hit by the frontals, then you should be okay. Key thing is, if you want to min-max damage and you want to weave in damage, the thing to track is the arcane frontals, the construct frontals. If you see that they're about to come off cooldown, then you can start DPSing. However, if you see them on cooldown for like 10 seconds left, that is when you want to kite if you don't have Incarn, okay? That is when you want to kite. Because when they're not casting the arcane frontal, that means they're meleeing you. And their melees absolutely destroy. So that's when you want to kite. This pull was just very hectic. Because again, I just couldn't tank it for a very long time. I had to run circles. I can't run too far the other way. I had to double back. And kind of makes it a little scuffed. Our healer got hit by it. Because, I was just doing random circles non-stop. Either way though, you can kite just a longer distance to not, have these accidental hiccups, especially in pug groups. Just kite the full duration of the circle before you, not the full duration of the circle, but just kite a bigger arc in this ring before you double back. Key thing though is do not pop your Incarn again. You definitely do not want to do that because you need that second Incarn. You need that next Incarn for this next pull. These ice cutters or icy cutters are very, very lethal and you really want to have Incarn. Usually the way I pull is I will dot them up. I will usually mangle thrash or mangle or thrash, and then I will disorienting roar that first cast. As you can see here, I disorienting roar that first cast. That allows me to walk right by them. So you have two GCDs, okay? You have two GCDs, one for Moonfire, one for mangle or thrash, and then you can walk right by them. Then you can go and pick up this third pack. You pop Incarn, and then you start start frenzied regenning up, okay? You just start frenzied regenning up immediately. And then I did pop Rage of the Sleeper because I did drop a little lower than I would have liked to. This is a Fort 26, so it does hurt very hard. As you can see here, I'm just tanking these without defensives, just using the frenzied regions. I'm just spamming frenzied regions to top off. And then now that my Incarn is down, I start kiting. I did pop a bark skin as well towards the end of my Incarn. And then you just kite. Now, take a look here. I take a look at where the pat is, where the mini boss is. And because I see the pat is right there. Oh, I pick it up. Okay, normally I don't pick this up yet. Okay, normally I do not pick this up yet. I'm not sure why I picked this up here. Because I don't have any defensives yet. Very interesting decision by me. But luckily I do have a Disc Priest who has, PS plus barrier. So I do have additional defensives in that regard. Luckily my Rage of the Sleeper and Barkskin come off cooldown again. Okay, and then I probably should be kiting soon because that was my Barkskin. And I do indeed I use my Stampeding Roar to get out. And then you can range the breath, and you can range the Ice Cutter as well. And then right here, I'm pretty sure I'm telling my teammates to kill it. Otherwise, I'm going to die because I need to pull the next pack. I just don't have the room. Alright. Luckily, we do kill it in time before I was gonna die, because that will one-shot me. Guaranteed one-shot. No defensives, no Incarn, guaranteed one-shot by that Ice Cutter, even on like a 24. Right here, our healer was dead, but I still pulled because I have Incarn. And I can just heal up all the damage by myself. Doesn't really matter too much. However, you do need a kite again once Incarn is down. or once it's about to be over, you have to kite, okay? The only reason why I'm doing this is because I have Incarn up, and I just, you know, can heal it all back up. No problem. You can see Incarn is down here, so I'm going to start kiting soon. I use Typhoon, Nox, and the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to go the other way to pick up the third guard, and then I'm going to pick up the other stuff as well. And for the most part here, you are just kiting the entire time until your Incarn comes off cooldown. Usually when I do these pulls, I do it the other way around. I don't actually pick up the mini boss yet. I pick up the mini boss when I have Incarn up again. Normally I will, depending on where the pad is, I'll pull the keeper on the opposite end. And then we'll kill that pack by itself. And then I'll pick up the mini boss as the keeper pack is about to die. Even with defensives, keep in mind this keeper does do magical blast, okay? The condensed frost is a magical blast, and if it lines up with the ice cutter, even if you have a defensive, you are getting one shot. All right, it has happened to me, fair warning. So usually speaking, either make sure your DPS are interrupting every single keeper cast if you have melee DPS, or make sure it dies before you pick up the mini boss. And even then, when you pick up the mini boss, I don't think Incarn is necessarily up yet though, but you will have defensives, and then you rotate your defensives until Incarn is up. Then when you have Incarn up, you should be okay. All right, right here, we just CC those spiteful shades, I forgot what they're called, and then we pick up the boss. For this boss, you definitely want to pop a defensive for every single ice cutter. This one was a very weird run. We somehow had frogs on this pull. Don't know how. Just very weird. It got very hectic, and I'm pretty sure it's because of the rings. This was the week the rings came out. Yeah. So we have, you know, some looters, Hornswogg with the intermission. Very scary for me because these looters apply a bleed to me, and so I'm just, you know, kind of fighting for my life here. Right here, I'm just trying my best. I accidentally got hit. I was just trying to pay attention to the Hornswogg and the looters, trying to make sure they don't bother my DPS too much. So I had to drop a vortex down for them. Luckily, we were able to survive this intermission. And then right here, I think there was a call to kill the DPS, or kill the adds. Just full kill the adds, ignore boss. Because I cannot continue tanking these looters. I am running out of defensives. Incarn comes back up there, luckily, and now I'm safe. We did let a lot of these bolts get off, by the way, from these images. And that's just because everything was so hectic. We are low on kicks regardless. I will say, generally speaking, with our kicks, the sequence is usually the first add, it's me or the evoker kicks first. And then the second add, it is one of the priest kicks, or sorry, not one of the priest kicks, but the priest or the boomkin kicks, one or the other, for the first kick. And then I usually will cover the second kick, and then my evoker for the third if necessary. And then for the third add, it will be the boomkin or the priest, whichever one didn't kick. He kicks the first, and then again I follow with the second kick and then the evoker for the third kick. That is generally how we do it. That's how you do it with low amount of kicks. Because the first ad, usually, you know, everybody has things up at the start of the phase. So they'll pop shit. And the first ad should die comfortably. You can always, you know, use stuns, use other things. We fucked up here because our Boomkin beamed the boss, and we also fucked up some of the stops, and so it resulted in a death on our priest. Also didn't have res, and so yeah, it fucked up our kick sequence. This is the pains of running with a low kick comp. You have to be perfect with your kicks, otherwise you have a lot of avoidable damage that you will take. And then we had to do another phase. I don't know if the priest was up, maybe we wouldn't have had to do another phase, but for sure we wouldn't have had to do this phase if we didn't get those looters and Hornswog, for sure. Just gonna fast forward a little bit. We do end up killing this. During this intermission, by the way, you can position yourself far away to just cut some of the puddles away. However, if you really want to min-max, generally speaking, if you have an After the Wildfire proc, you can move over towards your DPS to proc it. I don't do it enough because usually my group is, generally speaking, fairly okay at killing intermission ads. We have an S-Priest and a Boomkin normally for this dungeon, so it's pretty fast. Okay. So right here, now we go boss into another boss. You can drop down from that ledge. I shouldn't have taken the book. I don't know which way is faster, to be honest, but you can drop down from the other cliff. Alright. This boss fight, usually speaking, we will have we usually have 2 on the inner ring, 3 on the outer ring, but normally we actually do 2 inner ring, 2 outer ring, and then 1 guy in the middle in the back. That's usually what we do now. Right here, I'm doing some unethical things. I'm sitting in that stuff for Bristling Fur rage generation. Just do a bit more damage. But absolutely safe because we have Incarn. Just heal back up. Alright, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I think this boss fight is fairly simple. I don't think there's anything to really go over too much. The only thing I will note is during when she comes back down, the first few hits she does hurts a lot because you don't really have Incarn stacks, or you don't have Iron Fur stacks, I mean. So that might be a point where you want to press defensives or press a Frenzied Regen. Well, you for sure will want to press a Frenzied Regen. Alright, fast forwarding. And we will move to the next boss. Okay. Right here, you don't have to take the book, you can just fly down. And then we pull immediately. And they have changed the boss now to where you don't have to kite. For this boss, especially on Fort Weeks, Incarn is absolutely safe for taking one of the tank busters. If you are on the Tyrant week, you probably want to pop Barkskin as well, or a Tooth and Claw proc if you have one. Barkskin and Rage of the Sleeper are sufficient for 1 each. Unfortunately, our evoker decided to fly through one of the circles. And at the B-res. But pretty much just rotate your defensives. Generally speaking, you want your healer in voice chat for this because you do have to call for healer externals. You do have to. With the recent change to the Barkskin, however, you may not need to. You may not need to. So as you can tell here, Dragon Strike is coming up. My Barkskin just came off cooldown. I could have used it, but I called for a healer external instead. I think with the recent change to Barkskin being on 15 seconds shorter cooldown, you should be absolutely fine for this boss now. I haven't taken a look at the duration between each Dragon Strike, but if I remember correctly, it is a little variable because the crystal shard break, it takes precedence over every other ability, and so it will cancel the other abilities. And what can end up happening is he's casting a Dragon Strike, you push the boss, and then it cancels the Dragon Strike temporarily, and then you have to pop an extra defensive. That has happened multiple times. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. So right there, it happened right there. I popped a Tooth and Claw proc on him. He was about to do the Dragon Strike, got the crystals, canceled the Dragon Strike mid-cast, and then I popped a Barkskin. My Incarn was still up, so I would have been okay regardless, but I did it just in case. Because I still have Rage of the Sleeper, I have PS Barrier, still have my Rage of the Sleeper, and then my SI is coming up again. So, very, very safe. On a fort week, I'm pretty sure Tooth and Claw will be sufficient to survive one if you're topped off. Alright, so now here is the special skip. We didn't know where the guy spawned, but we go back to the front, and you always teleport to the middle one, which is the mausoleum. And then we do a massive, massive pull with Lust. So right here, we have 2 minutes left when we get here. You Mind Soothe, and you just run by on the right. Have your DPS not tag anything, okay? Unless it's like a priest, he can dot and fade himself, fade off the aggro. But we tag everything, we pull everything down to the bottom, and this is a massive Lust pull. Gathering everything usually takes about 30 seconds. I was a little slow and delayed there because I didn't know whether everybody would just run by or not. But usually it should take about 30 seconds to 40 seconds. Shouldn't take any longer than that. As you can see here, we Lust up, and then we just pump. And this is on a fort week, keep in mind. We had about 115 when we Lusted, something like that. And that's all the time you, for the most part, need. Unless it's Sanguine Week. If you're Sanguine Week, good luck. This pull is variades. You probably want to split the pull into 2, but if you feel like you're very, very clean with Sanguine, then by all means. And the way that we want to do these shades that we didn't do here was we're supposed to kite backwards. We just pull everything back at the same time. That way the Spitefuls are not an issue. So we just continue kiting up the stairs as a group so that shades aren't too big of a problem. And luckily, we barely time it with 10 seconds to spare. And this was a very scuffed run. A very, very scuffed run. We had our priest death on the second boss. We had random deaths here and there. The ring on the second ring, I died, the priest died. We had to pop Incarn early. Delay pulled in the 5th construct. Healer was dead in the second boss room, so I couldn't pull everything immediately. Yeah, so there were a lot of hiccups here. So if we were clean, I think we would definitely have at least a minute 30 to spare. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll come back with I think the last one I'm missing is, aside from SBG and Court, I think the one I'm missing is Naowh. Yeah, Naowh. Alright, see you guys in the next one.